Welcome to Obey Your Strengths with Gallup Certified Strengths Coach, Kersten.
Hi, Strengths fans. Welcome to Obey Your Strengths. Today, my guest is Beth Wammack. She is the CEO of GDC Marketing and Ideation. Beth, welcome to the show.
Hello, Kathy. Thank you.
I'm so thrilled that you're going to be here. When I worked with you, I guess it was a year ago, 2 years ago. I'm not sure. I've lost track of time. I remembered your top 5 because you are all in the influencing realm. And not only that, you work for a company that has a strengths name in the name of the company, GDC Marketing and Ideation. So you belong on this show.
Thank you. Yes, I do. I'm feeling it. I'm feeling it.
You have to come talk about strengths because I know it's an important part of your life and a part of your business. So anyway, tell us what your top 5 is.
All right. Well, here we go. Communication. I'm a woo, win others over. I have self-assurance. I'm an activator, and I have significance.
Tell us about communication. Let's start at the top. Have you always been a storyteller?
I have. And that is also to the embarrassment of pretty much everybody around me because I will tell a story to anyone who will listen.
Oh, that's the combination of the woo and the communication?
Yes, it is. I will talk to people in elevators, and I will tell them pretty much about anything in any part of my life. So I am an oversharer.
That's
there are
great.
there are no secrets in my life.
That's great. Okay, and then what's the next one?
All right. So I'm a woo. That's the woo part.
Yep.
Self-assurance. So self-assurance is very interesting. And so when I saw that one, I read the definition of it, and I was like, oh yeah, that's right. You know, it's confidence. And it was interesting because it was something that I was like, yeah, of course, and didn't realize a lot of people didn't have that. And I think it's something when I hear people who are unsure of themselves or indecisive and who have to ask questions, and I'm like, what's wrong? Like, why are you asking that question? Just do it. Just do it. And I think it took me some time to really understand what that means to me and what it means to other people. And that was a lot of maturity. So it's been something that's been in me forever. And just I had a lot of growth around that.
Oh, man. You know, self-assurance really is not that common. So you're right when you realize that, because currently 21 million people have taken the Strengths Finder, and just a fun fact, it's the bottom. It has the least amount of dominance out of all 34 strengths. So it's pretty cool. It's your number 3. It's most of the most of the population walk around within the bottom 5.
And I did not know that, and that's where it's a tricky one. Self-assurance can be tricky.
Yeah, and in that case, you're a standout. So you've stood out because of your strong confidence.
Well, sometimes you have to keep it quiet because it can come off as cocky, and especially with women with self-assurance. A lot of men don't want to see a lot of self-assurance coming off of women. So it's been tricky in my career.
Oh, well, we will unpack that in
this
podcast.
Yes, we can. I would love to share that. I would love to share it.
Okay, what's next?
Okay, Activator. So this one, when I read this one, it was like such an aha moment for me because it's the literal cannot not act. So the minute someone comes into my office and says, hey, I am typing the email. And they're like, what, I'm trying to talk to you. Please stop doing what you're doing. And I'm like, no, I'm typing the email to the person that you want me to do this to. And people don't understand that I have the ability. And they're like, no, multitasking isn't a real thing. Like, they've done research on it. I'm like, no, I'm doing it. I'm doing it right now.
It's happening.
Yes, I have to do it. I have to do it. So I do like to do a lot of things. I like to act on them. I like to make things happen.
And your last but not least, significance.
Yeah, and that was one that when I read it, I was like, why do people want to even be around me? Because when I looked at the combination of some of these, I was like, I am a lot to handle.
You definitely bring some intensity.
I know. I can, especially when it's all swirling and it's perfect storm. I'm sure you could probably interview some other people who could tell you what that looks like. But the significance really doesn't come out so much in that. Where I see it most often is that I want things to be great. It doesn't necessarily have to be about me, but the work that I do must have importance. And other things have to be great. So it's really that I want to align myself with things and with people that are great. It doesn't have to be about me. I have heard that said to me that it has to be about me, but it's not. It's more about having the effort be great.
Well, now that you recently were promoted to CEO,
Yes, thank you.
congratulations. You guys are doing great stuff at GDC Marketing and Ideation, and I hope
We
that we
are.
get to pull out some stories from your unique culture
Of course.
there, and your strengths based, and I think that's fantastic. But I see your top 5 in you through and through. I also want to mention, if I didn't already, that you are a mom of teenagers, right?
I am. I am.
So I hope that in this conversation, we will kind of move back and forth between personal and professional
Of
stories.
course. It would be my pleasure to embarrass them as much as possible.
Awesome. I love it. Well, I really admire what you've built in your career. And I want to know, when did you first discover your unique strengths? So tell me the story of discovering that. And if you felt like it was special.
Professionally, we rolled out Strength Finders in our organization. It was probably about 14 years ago.
Okay.
When I have anyone who rolls up into my organization now interviewing, I give them the book. And that's why my children have already taken this test.
Mm-hmm.
If I had this when I was younger, I mean, what a gift. Because School of Hard Knocks life,
Right.
that I had to learn more and more about myself. But just having that level of self-awareness where you can see the pluses and the minuses of where you've learned how you need to work with your strengths. Looking back on some of the struggles that I've had earlier on, the perceptions of what a significance might look like in my sorority, where self-assurance and others around me are not there yet. And so while you see all of these are, which I learned later on, are influencing, my influencing skills weren't working with me yet. And so on the flip side of that, if my influencing skills aren't working with me, I'm feeling very dissatisfied and unhappy. And so it wasn't until later that I realized the magic of when I'm working at my best with my influencing skills, that I need to learn more about other people's strengths and how I need to actually co-opt other people to make myself more well-rounded and stronger.
Right.
And that's where I actually have better outcomes. So I'm focused more on the outcomes, and then that's where I get my success.
I can imagine that your strength set put together really focuses on impact. The impact of outcomes.
It is. It's
right?
really, it's totally about the outcome. And it is less about my personal needs or wants, but really about my organization.
I discovered my strengths in 2006, and I was already in the working world, but I wish, kind of like you.
That's about the same, yeah.
It was
right about
probably
then,
around the
yeah.
same time when some of those thought leaders around town were talking about StrengthsFinder here in San Antonio, when we discovered these things around that same time. But I always thought it was a relief to find out these were my top 5, right? Or my top 10. I wish I would have known them in college.
Yes.
I could have had a totally different college experience if I would have realized these things about myself.
Now, so when we rolled them out to leadership first. And I did see a lot of people struggling with their own strengths, and that they, had, strength envy. Everybody wanted something else that they didn't have. And, the way the strengths work is, you've got your top 5, which are your innate ones, but you can develop your other strengths, and those can pop up. And so it was really kind of coming to learn those. But where you're really, I think feeling more fulfilled is when you're hitting those top 5, like when you're really, developing those out. And that's really where you're hitting your stride. And so, but also that there's nothing wrong with you, because those are your strengths. And so it's just really embracing those and making people feel good about where they were within those. And that's when I was like, building a stronger team and having people acknowledge and embracing people's different strengths. I'll tell you 2 strengths, that really 3. Context, which drove me crazy. And as soon as I realized why it drove me crazy, I was like, that's why that person is driving me crazy, because they have context. And it was because they ask questions. And so the reason why I don't like questions is because I have self-assurance. And so for anyone to ask me a question, like, why would you question me? I know everything.
From the different filters.
I'm always right.
Okay, so context is driving you crazy with questions. What's another
but
one?
then I realized this person needs things answered. So I was like, slow
down.
your roll.
Mm-hmm.
And then, but wait, I have Activator. So I have to put it into a much slower gear. So this was very helpful for me to learn how to, work with someone with context. But then to have better success in my organization, I learned people with adaptability were my heroes. So,
tell me why.
Because when I need something to get done and I was already feeling the fire in me, because that's what it feels like when it's all coming together and I need something to get done. And let me tell you, in what I do in marketing, I'm like every client's dream. I mean, they have something hot. They need something done. They want me.
Because you're a sense of urgency. You're a walking sense of urgency.
Yes, this is going to happen.
You get excited.
Yes, this will happen. Like whatever crazy dream you have, it's going to happen. But someone with adaptability, they're going to be nonplussed by this, and they're going to be like, okay, they might have to take a deep breath, but then we're going to figure it out. So once I identified those people, I was like, all right, this is great. And somebody with a little bit of analytical. And I think, you met my two partners, and that's when you came and you laid out all of our strengths.
Yes.
That moment that we had, that was pretty funny, where we saw how we all fell into our buckets in the quadrants.
It's amazing the partnership you've built. So take us into let's go a little deeper into your working world. Tell us about GDC Marketing and Ideation.
Yes.
You do something very unique.
We do. I mean, we work in marketing. I mean, we do a lot of different things. So we're a full service agency. We do advertising. We do media buying. We do public relations. We're end-to-end service providers for clients. But really what we do, we are critical thinkers and we provide solutions for our clients. And sometimes this is operational. Sometimes it's communications. Sometimes it's crisis. So when someone comes with a solution, we'll ideate around it. And we have different proprietary, ways in which we approach.
You've got methods and processes.
Yes, we do.
You have a toolkit that people can purchase from you. Okay.
Yes, we do. So, Frank Guerra is the founding partner, and he is truly one of the most generous and humble servant leaders an organization could have. So he's fabulous and he's wonderful. And then Carrie Quackenbush, he is our third and newest partner, and he's, I say, the smart partner. So he is really the smart partner. I think where I fit in there is I've been operating in the operations part of the organization and really handling a lot of the people part of the organization for a long time. But to see how our strengths fit in these quadrants and kind of where we have kind of migrated into our own responsibilities, it was interesting to see, because seeing all of my strengths in that one quadrant of influencing, and then seeing their strengths all in the executing and relationship building and strategic thinking it blew my mind.
So what is the dynamic of that team like, since you're so different? Because that could go two ways. I mean, you being all in influencing,
yes.
Frank being in relationship building and executing.
So
right?
I think I do remember after that retreat where my CFO walked up to you and was like, what does it mean? Like, who is she? And Tom Lewis and I, we are like, he's my best bud.
He's a funny guy.
Yeah, no, he and I work so closely together, and I give him a hard time because we work on a lot of numbers and things like that. And usually, I get to it first. Like, I'll get to the number first. I don't know how, but I just do. And then he'll do it the long way. And then he's like, you were right. And I'm like, I know. Imagine that.
You're like, I know.
I just knew it. I know. I knew it. And then Frank will laugh. And, we just think it's funny.
Right. So partnerships.
Oh, yeah. No, but Tom asked you at that time. He was like, who, because he was just so curious about it. And then I think you may have asked, well, is there a lot of conflict? And no, there's not. And it is funny. We do not. There's no conflict between Frank and Carrie and I. And it's almost like, I don't know, it may be just the dynamic of our organization of like family, but there's so much respect and space of who we are. And I go back to that from even the very, very beginning of the organization. And this is why I do love it so much and why it has been almost like a sacrifice of love for me in so many ways. But, I've worked at different agencies in town, and I am a handful. I do know that. And I do need, if you read deeply into my strengths, I need a lot of independence. I need a lot of autonomy. And when you're 25, that's very annoying when you go into an organization. I know that because I have those people come in, and I've never once said, oh, yes, 25-year-old, here's all the independence and autonomy you need. So, I get it. But that is what I needed. And when I came into GDC, it was different because whatever they recognized in me, they saw it and they allowed me to have that growth. Maybe they put up guardrails. Let's just say they put up the guardrails, but they let me run with it. And I think that's such a beautiful place and space. And I think it was on a car ride one time, Carrie and I were talking, and I was like, yeah. And I walked into this client meeting, and I think the partners had already told the client a little bit about me because they were like, oh, just wait for Beth. She's something. And I said, what do you think about that? And he's like, I think they love you a lot. And I was like, oh, that's so sweet.
That is really awesome.
Yeah.
That you were given opportunity to flourish and that
yeah.
your strengths were, even though they're quite different from
Yes.
Frank's as the founding
yes.
principle of the organization.
But I did learn something through that gift, is that having received that is something that I want to give back to everybody else in the organization. So that is something that when I learn people's strengths, and I sometimes, I feel that there may be a challenge, to open it up and to work with people on what that will look like within our organization and to give everybody that opportunity. So for the growth.
I want to ask you about managing people's strengths. As a female leader, I want to ask you about managing performance issues, because if you have your eye on impact, you probably don't let performance issues linger, I'm guessing, when I think of your strengths.
Yes. No.
Talk us through that.
Yes. So, and I think for all organizations, it's about having difficult conversations, and it's about having feedback. So this is something that I continue to work with leadership in my organization. And then, of course, I do it often myself. Just, I'm very hands-on. But it's also something that I want to teach everyone to do. And it's to have feedback on a regular basis. And this sounds a little different than what you will read in most managerial 101s, but which I have. They usually call it the feedback sandwich, where you give the positive and then the negative and the positive. I don't do that.
What do you do?
So I give the negative. And this is the reason why. People only want to hear the positive, and I've learned that. So when you call somebody into your office to give them the feedback, it's hard. And I've also said this too. It's like an employee is just like a child. You have 2 kids, they're all different. You're going to have to tailor it to that specific individual. So, make sure you're having an individual conversation. It's not just the conversation that you have with everybody. Like, hey, Timmy, I'm sorry, you're doing a bad job. You suck, get better, the end.
Right. So you customize, you plan.
Yeah.
You think through it.
Yeah, you customize, you plan. And also what I love to do is just to ask them first, like, how do you think you're doing?
Some self-reflection
Always.
Feedback.
And just let them go on that.
Because then they give you,
yeah,
you get to see what's in their head.
Yeah.
And where their own self-judgments are. And if they have an idea that there might be, or what's going on from their own perspective.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So that you can then clarify or press into that.
Yeah.
Interesting, Beth.
Yeah. But yeah, definitely the little feedback sandwich does not, in my experience, doesn't work.
Doesn't work.
No.
Because people might turn their blinders on for the middle part of the constructive criticism.
Yes. When you want to give positive feedback, give positive feedback. When you want to give the feedback, give the feedback. And that's it. But give it frequently and give it often and give it when it counts. And that's the importance, is that people want to hear it. But, and I'll say this because anybody who ever tried to give me feedback in my career, I think
Yeah, tell me how Beth accepts feedback, Beth.
it's really hard. So, and this is my moment of vulnerability. Okay, so hold on one second. Yes, it is really hard to give me feedback, and I do know that. And this goes from early on in my career, not at GDC, but at another agency, which I did pick up and learn. I do think that self-evaluations are a good tool. I've always felt that they were a good tool because it's always good to know where the employee is coming in, right? Because then you can kind of reality check it and be like, okay, so they think they did a phenomenal job. And if I need to take this down a notch, that's going to be great. Well, of course, I'm always thinking I did a phenomenal job. So yeah, those would usually not go well for the person who is reviewing me. So.
Because you're willing to articulate all the ways that it went well.
Yeah, it's usually going to
be very persuasive.
Pretty good in my mind. Yeah. So so usually people want to pick their timing. Timing is usually a good, to give me feedback. Usually. So, but recently, I had the opportunity where because I do like to set goals for myself, and that's my personal drive. Like I constantly going in motion, and so I like to have a goal and I like to go after it. And I had a goal last year, and I realized that goal did not go as planned, and I was like, wow. And I told people like, this is what we're going to do, and it didn't happen. And I was like, well, I could get really upset because they didn't do what I told them to do, or I could take responsibility for it that it didn't happen and use myself as a live example. And so in fourth quarter of this past year, I continued to set myself up as the live example at every staff meeting of my failure and why it failed. And the reason why it failed is because, and of course, the goal that I set was a complicated, deployment of software where it had multiple dependencies on it, and I was relying on a team of people, but there weren't the check-ins on the people and the milestones, and here I am thinking everybody's working together and doing this and getting it done, but instead, what happened? Everybody got busy, and it wasn't important to them.
Lost of focus.
And so I thought, no, just take it all and then set it up and keep doing it. And I'm like, because what is important to me and what my real goal was is to set an example of accountability for my organization. And that goal starts with me. So I managed to do two things, and that was set the example for accountability moving forward.
Right.
Well, actually three things: how to set a goal moving forward, and then get this software going in the right direction. And so that is how I started 2020.
And I love this story because it shows authenticity and integrity for a leader to display, even when it's not going well, taking ownership of it. That's fantastic. How did they respond?
Initially, I think a couple of leaders were like, don't do that. Like, no, it's not your. And I was like, no, this needs to happen, and this is how we're going to do it. And we are all setting goals, and I'm showing all of mine, which I've already done in our staff meeting, and shown everybody how to set goals. Now I'm reviewing everyone's goals and revising them that are not in alignment and strong enough for the organization. Because as part of my CEO role, we are going to be stronger. And this is how we're going to do it. With a lot of focus.
You've got a lot of vision and a lot of focus. When I think about your strength set and the little bit I know about you, I want to talk about work-life balance. You bring lots of intensity to work. I want to talk, and let's be honest, I don't know if I even believe in work-life balance.
Yeah.
So, because I'm a recovering workaholic myself, and there's seasons of my life, right, that I work more and I love it, and I don't feel a bit of guilt to it. I feel disorganized in my mom house stuff, but I feel energized and passionate. You look from the outside like, man, you've got it going on. CEO of a marketing organization raising two successful teenage children. Tell me, what lessons have you learned, or what wisdom do you have on how to obey your strengths in this role of working mom?
first of all, I was completely blessed. Back in the day, we had on-site daycare at GDC.
What?
Yes, we did. That was our claim to fame.
Wow. For such a small organization to be able to do
had
that?
15 of our children in this daycare. And so both of my children, very small. So
How big was the organization back then?
at our largest, we were about 85.
So,
And I was a director level. And then, I moved up through the ranks from a director to VP to COO. Yeah.
So what an amazing, so I just want to take a moment and say, hello.
We had very visionary partners.
You
yes.
totally did.
We
and
did.
that is a very unique and highly
It is.
valuable
Mhm.
for a working mom or dad perk. Wow. For a
Yes.
smaller organization.
Yeah, it really, really was.
They
And
always promised that was coming at Rackspace. And I held out, right? Because I was there for 7 years. And when we buy the mall, we're going to have a daycare. We never got that thing off the ground.
It is so valuable. And whether you can do it or you can't do it, the value of family to an organization and how you just allow your employees to have that experience. We are so flexible. And so that's really, even though we're not able to have that daycare construct anymore, somebody's fostering a Chihuahua puppy up at the office right now. I mean, I just left a puppy up at the office, okay? And if you wanted to bring your baby up there right now, I mean, in breastfeed, we would have no problem with that. I mean, it's
an accepting, welcoming
yes, it's very
environment.
accepting and welcoming. So we're very flexible with your schedules, what you need to do. We telecommute. You got to do what you got to do. But we work hard. We work hard. We play hard. And so that balance right now, I work all the time. I work 24/7. I sat in a client meeting. I answered the phone. I had 102 fever. It was the Secretary of State's office. I picked it up. I'm like dying on the phone.
Yep.
I was like, yes. Hello.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's a no joke thing. Now my children know this. I'm a single mom.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just me and my kiddos. And so we had the daycare, got divorced. My friends / employees, they help me. Like if I have to go work and I'm out and I can't pick up my kids from school, somebody will step in and pick up a kid. If I'm out of town and traveling, they'll have them come stay at their house. Or if my ex-husband can't help, I mean, it's a village. We just do what we have to do.
Yeah. Creating that support system is key. You can't do it alone.
It is.
No female that is successful like yourself is doing it alone.
My daughter delivered RFP to Austin.
Nice. She's even an employee.
Yeah, she is. She was like, I'll get it delivered, Mom, over the holidays. She's taking it up by 35.
That's awesome.
So they do, and my children know what I do. I mean, they're so involved, and they've heard the phone calls that they probably shouldn't hear, but they understand the stress and the focus, and they've pretty much seen a lot behind,
the behind the scenes of what it takes to be the CEO. I appreciate that. And that is maybe a switch in my mind that I've made further into my career, as in like integrating work with family. So sometimes I bring, and this is a silly story, it has nothing to do with our Obey Your Strengths. Or maybe it does because I have belief in my top 5. But I bring my kiddos to some of my speaking engagements, or I talk in front of them to clients, not because it's a necessity, which sometimes it is, but I could go hide in my office or go do whatever, but I want them to hear the conversations I'm having. I want them to learn words that we're using in the business world. I want them to have some exposure so that whenever somebody says, "Hey, what does your mom do?" they can tell them what she does.
I do think
right?
I think it's very important. Yeah, I do.
For a while, I sort of tried to protect them and say, this is, when I'm mom, and I don't do any work and I'm all yours. And that's honestly, that just put unrealistic pressure on myself.
Yeah.
And it's been so much more fun this way because my kids are like, wow, where are you going this week? And are you recording a podcast today?
Yeah.
They know what I'm doing. They've been in the podcast studio with me. It's pretty cool. So I'm glad to hear that you're doing that. What would you say in this life of a CEO? I'm sure you get lots of invitations to go influence lots of different things, like socially, professionally. How do you make really good choices about how you spend your time?
I'm just now starting to toe dip. So it is a shift for me that I'm just now making that shift. So I have been very internally focused into the organization the past 20 years because that's really what I've done. And Frank Guerra, everybody knows him. I mean, you can't walk into a restaurant
without, it is a small
somebody
town.
knows him.
That's
So,
true.
I know some people. People will be like, oh, yeah, we know you. Don't you work for Frank? And I'm like, oh, I'm his partner. Okay, whatever. But yes, so I'm starting to make that shift and get out there. So I'm not quite as, valuable,
Mhm.
but I am making that circuit. And Frank is trying to make that transition for me happen. So I am on a board. And that was also because my time is so split between kids and the organization, but I did find a board that was very important to me, Rise Recovery, and so
So you invest some
love that.
time and
Yes,
talent into that.
yes, definitely doing that
Great.
as well too.
Good.
So.
Well, I bet, with your talent set, you're going to be like Miss San Antonio soon. Now that you can step out and say, I am the CEO, because we know the difference between a COO. A COO is supposed to be spending a lot of internal time making sure that processes and customer delivery is happening, but the CEO gets to step in that diplomat role.
And I am. I'm very excited, and
cool.
I'm ready for it too. Yeah.
Are you?
Yeah. Yes, very much so. Very much so.
Well, fantastic. Well, tell me a little bit more about the culture, because I know you do some really cool things, and I want to fangirl just a tad. I mean, tell me some of the coolest stuff about being a GDCer.
Yes. So
is that what you call them?
Yes, we do.
Okay.
So, the thing that I think is really, really special about being a GDCer is that we will be celebrating our 25th anniversary, I think, next year.
Mm-hmm.
We've had a lot of people go through the organization through the years. And, some people have opted out. Some people, have been escorted out.
Mm-hmm.
We are still embraced through that whole process. And I think that's something special because I think even through the time that is spent there, we are very warm. And as I mentioned, we're very flexible in terms of the time that you're there, to spend with your family. And we enjoy each other when we're there. A company, an organization can be like, okay, we're going to go, everybody, come into the kitchen. We're going to cut the cake.
Yeah, it's happy birthday time.
Somebody's birthday. What has happened in our organization is everything is our culture has grown organically. When you can see the engagement of your employees through organic growth, I was just like, oh my God, this is so beautiful. So our birthdays happen because an employee, she bakes your cake and she goes to you and she asks you, we didn't ask her to do this. She just loves baking cakes. Well, now we've hired another person who also likes to bake, and we're like, oh my God, are they going to start fighting? Is it a street fight? Like, what's going to happen? Now Morgan's there. Now there's going to be a street fight. No, it's just, love multiplies.
Everyone
it doesn't divide.
Gets a homemade, personalized cake.
We're baking. Yes.
I like strawberry with cream cheese icing.
So
just so you know. Okay, go ahead.
There's lots of baking is happening, and then where we moved, so
You recently moved.
We bought property, and just that act was me trying to, buy property in less than 24 hours and give everybody a heart attack, but I did it.
Of course, Activator.
But there was a list of things that I wanted to make sure that we were getting accomplished for the family, right? And that was, we had a strange list of things. Parking was number one. Everybody wanted parking. I'm like, okay, let's find something with parking. But we wanted, showers in case people wanted to work out, to have the ability to have showers. We wanted a kitchen because people do want to be able to cook. We wanted green space because people wanted outdoor space. And also, potentially, we haven't built it yet, but we like to barbecue, have a barbecue station.
Awesome.
So that's still in the works, but we're going to do that as well. And what this resulted in was a very unique property with 5 separate houses on it. So we're physically officed in 3. One of the other houses is, we call it the playhouse, but it's actually got, foosball and stuff in it. And then our conference room. Well, each house has its own unique personality because of just the departments that are in it. And the house with the kitchen, that group, they all combine and do make lunches together, like they're like crock potting or something. It's just interesting. And then like in building 2, they're always doing taco runs. So the groups kind of come together and do different things.
And create their own identities. That's
They
so
do.
cool.
And we're competitive with each other, and we just have different things. And we have groups where we travel together, and we'll plan trips together. We'll do Star Wars together. And it's just...
When we did our strengths workshop, we did it in a bowling alley.
Yes.
You remember? We were at the bowling alley, and I thought, this is, I get to do strengths workshops in a lot of really cool places, right? I've done it in the caverns, Natural Bridge Caverns.
That would be cool.
I've done it there.
That would be cool.
But I had never done it in a bowling alley till I worked with GDC, and I got to see the competition come out when you started to bowl.
Yes, we do like to compete. We do like competition.
And it's such a fun, energetic group. So I bet it's got a great energy vibe.
It does. And we, we've seen each other through a lot of different things. So the good and the bad. And I think that's also the other thing. We've had some of our employees go through some tough times. And so just, again, seeing each other through all of that is what brings us closer together.
So I'm going to ask you a challenging question that you probably aren't prepared for, but I know you can do it. I can see where that family came from, because Frank, as the founding partner, right, what does he have? Does he have, he has harmony relator? Does he have empathy?
He has belief and connectedness.
Okay.
And strategic, and I think he has ideation.
Ideation.
Or Carrie does. They might both have that.
For some reason, I was pinning him with some harmony, but maybe not.
He might have harmony. I handle all the hard stuff.
Do you?
Yes.
Okay. I can see, just by interacting with him during that short amount of time I was with your team, man, the way that he sort of is with someone. Like when he was chatting with me about how I had built my business and that I was a former Rackspace employee and all.
Yeah, he will know you. Like he will get to know you. Yes,
I'm like, I'm being sucked into the Frank vortex. Like he was so genuine and kind.
Very much so.
I really wanted to go party with you and the other people who are like, woo!
No, and he's a very great
so
mentor.
Genuine.
Yes, he will mentor and be very,
So that family culture is already established. So here's the challenging question. And you value it, but do you think that your unique strengths will work its way through the culture as well in a unique way? Do you think maybe y'all start to move faster with Activator? Or?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So it is interesting because, just to back up. So yes, Frank has his experiences with people. Frank also, because he has a very large family himself, has never attended any of our personal family things. He does not have time to do that. I, on the other hand, go to everybody's birthday parties.
Yeah.
All of the after work things. So that's been where the division of involvement. So that's what we do.
So you stepped in.
Yes. So that's how we share that. And Carrie as well. So like Carrie and I, because he has a large family and other engagements. So that's where we're like, okay, I'll go to the happy hour. I'll go to the.
You don't mind, woo?
I'll go to the birthday party. Yeah, exactly. And it is. Some of it is just some. Yeah.
Well, some of it brings joy, right? It just brings joy to your strengths.
Exactly. Those social interactions. And so now that he's actually pulling back, he's got more time. So he showed up at something, and I was like, "Are you getting in my space now?"
Don't take over my role.
I know it was funny, but no. But if he's got time to do that, then he will do that. So I think that's great. Awesome. Yes, I do think that the speed of light and all that. Yes, I think they understand what's coming. Yes, and
you bring that intensity.
Yeah.
So this is a question that when I do coaching. And I'm not saying this because I don't think it to be true, but do you ever feel like, wow, am I too intense?
Yes, I do.
How do you cope with it though? Because in my coaching, when I'm talking to someone who has a lot of influencing, I'm like, no, like keep pressing into your strengths, learn how to manage them. But I don't know because I don't have that type of top five.
Well,
so you tell me, Beth.
I mean, I do think I have a pretty high emotional intelligence where I read a room pretty well and we'll get that and can dial it back. And we'll do that.
But, if you need to. See, I think that's one of the key things about, especially woo and even significance. You have some sensing abilities to know how you're being perceived that then make you even more influential because you can pick up signals.
Yeah, I can actually be quiet in a room and let somebody else do it because obviously I have a high extroversion level.
Right, right.
When I'm with another high extrovert, sometimes who's doing it, I'll dial it back and I'll let them do it. Yeah, I will.
Oh,
Yeah.
That's awesome. So what we need to learn from this is that our strengths we can manage them, right? They're not always just running away, and we're not always one way, that we're complex human beings. And that's what I hope to always let people know when they're listening to this podcast is that, we're not in a box. We're complex, and no one else has your unique top 5, right? Like you, well, there could be, but there's a very slim chance. It's something like 1 in 278,000 people have your top 5.
Oh my gosh.
So Beth,
oh my gosh.
1 in 33 million have it in the same order. So you really could be the only person in San Antonio with communication, woo, self-assurance, activator, significance. But still, we're more than our top 5, and we can dial them in, dial them out, dial them back. Now, let me ask you the last question. Okay. So this is the obey your strengths question. So I'm hoping that you will dig up for some vulnerability. Which strength of any of your top 5 do you feel like is one that you have to obey? And by obey, I mean you got to feed it, and it yearns to live itself out through you. And if it is, which one of those strengths is it?
It would probably be my woo.
Tell me more.
I mean, I'm a people person, so I have to have that interaction with people. I guess it was like 7, 8 years ago. I went on a vacation by myself and to Costa Rica. It was fabulous. But I was like, because all I do is take care of other people. And so I was like, I'm going to go on a vacation all by myself and just take care of me and do whatever I want. Right. So I did. And then immediately felt like the most selfish person in the world because, I was just like, who does this? I mean, really?
Sounds like a dream to me.
And I mean, I did too, but then I saw poverty and then I just felt silly. Then I felt silly and I just kept tipping everybody and feeling guilty. But then when I was there, I was like, oh my gosh, I have to make friends now.
Now that I'm here, I have to have people hang out with.
I try to be quiet for a couple, minutes.
Talking to everyone.
Yeah, but then I was like, let's go meet the Canadians. All right, Canadians, are y'all funny? Who wants to laugh? And I did next thing I had all sorts of friends. I was just like, yep, that's it. Yeah,
gotta have the people.
Got a whole new set of friends in Costa Rica.
Got a whole new set.
Yeah, so I just wanted to make sure I could do it there. I could. So I do know that you could transplant me on the surface of the moon, and I'm gonna make a friend. Yep. They might not be a lifelong friend because I'm gonna leave, go somewhere else. But for that moment, I'll have my moon friend.
You're winning them over. They're gonna be a Beth fan for sure.
Yeah, for that one moon moment.
Awesome. Thank you for being here. This was a lot of fun.
Yeah, it was. Thank you.
Obey Your Strengths is produced by Geekdom Media in association with Gameday Media Enterprises. Executive produced by Lorenzo Gomez, John Garcia, and Michael Argent. To learn more about Kathy Kersten, visit her website, kathykersten.com. That's KATHYKERSTEN.com.